Good evening. My name is Pearce Robinson. Tonight, we go beyond the surface of what is being called the brewing Caribbean conflict. From a U.S. intelligence and military vantage point, this isn't a spontaneous drug interdiction mission. It's a calculated escalation. The focus, the Venezuelan regime of Nicolas Maduro, a resource-rich state aligned with America's adversaries, Russia, China, and Iran. The public line is narco-trafficking and drug interdiction. But behind that veil lies a deeper agenda: regime destabilization, resource extraction, and reassertion of U.S. dominance in the Western Hemisphere. Intelligence reporting describes it as a hybrid threat theater: narco-trafficking, illicit finance networks, state subversion, all tools of what insiders privately call the MAGA Monroe Doctrine. Since August 2025, U.S. military assets, including the USS General R. Ford carrier strike group and the USS Gravely destroyer, have been deployed, amongst others, in the Southern Caribbean, supported by special operations teams and F-35 jets operating from staging points in Puerto Rico and Curacao. These are not mere patrols, they're instruments of power projection, poised for possible strikes on Venezuelan coastal facilities under the counter-drug cover. The Pentagon's 2025 posture frames Venezuela as a revisionist actor, a pivot point for the greater power competitions, securing Venezuela's 300 billion barrels of proven oil reserves, plus gold, copper, and lithium deposits, essential for undermining China and Russia's influence. Meanwhile, narcotics trafficking is used as the legal pretext. So you've heard President Trump speak about critical minerals and rare earths. This forms part of that undergirding. But there's an important internal signal: domestic clemency. This same administration has pardoned or commuted some of the most notorious drug and money laundering figures in the United States, including Ross William Albright, founder of the Silk Road dark web marketplace, facilitating hundreds of millions in illicit drug transactions, fully pardoned January 21st, 2025. Larry Hoover, leader of the Gangster Disciples, convicted for a cocaine heroin empire and continuing criminal enterprises, had his federal sentence commuted on May 28, 2025. And others tied to major narcotics networks, criminal money laundering rings, and human trafficking proxies. The implication? The public-facing drug war narrative may cover a deeper transfer of control, from the competition to the winners. Intelligence sources suggest Trump's clemency record signals a parallel regime of trafficking networks being realigned in favor of political allies. For the people of Trinidad and Tobago and the wider Caribbean, the message is clear. Internal intelligence flags that all is not what it seems. While Washington claims to be fighting drugs, the strategy may instead be to install control mechanisms aligned with U.S. strategic interests. Tonight's interview will go to the heart of this. You'll hear from U.S. intelligence officer and military contractor who helped shape the operational assessments now driving U.S. posture in this region. His words are direct, unvarnished, and urgent. Stay with us. We begin now. First, I just want to say I genuinely appreciate you, making yourself available to have a chat with me about, what's taking place in the region. Now, I don't often share, the people that I communicate with, but given how important this is for the region, I wanted to be able to speak to someone in a way that I could share. Now, I appreciate that you are happy to share this with the people of Trinidad and Tobago on the condition that, obviously I don't identify who you are and whatnot, right? No.
Correct.
You've been sharing exclusive footage with me, which I've edited and put up online. Um, and of course, it's very rare to get verified visuals of war preparations like what's taking place in the Caribbean in sort of real time, right? Now,
Correct.
my goal in us having this, open conversation is to help inform the people of Trinidad and Tobago, and by extension the Caribbean, about what's unfolding beyond the headlines or official statements. Because I'm sure, as you would have seen, the Prime Minister, Donald Trump, and mainstream media aren't really giving the people, the story behind the story. They're not giving the full picture. I don't know if you saw the Prime Minister's utterances yesterday, where she is almost claiming that she's unaware of anything. Did you see that?
I didn't, but I've heard.
Okay, no problem. Well, she did that, and maybe I can send you a video of that, and I would have put up the evidence to show the people of Trinidad and Tobago that actually she's not being quite honest there. But I want to pay down into some of the military aspects a second, right? So, from your perspective as a contractor and intelligence officer, what specific indicators suggest that the U.S. military buildup in the Caribbean has moved from deterrence to active operational readiness?
Uh, are you asking me if that's happening right now?
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
clear.
Oh,
Yeah, that's very clear.
oh, you're saying that it's clear.
Um, Even here in Venezuela, it's spreading all over Latin America and the Caribbean right now.
Mhm.
I'm pretty sure in other countries in the Caribbean this is happening, but I can speak specifically in Ecuador, where the U.S. has supplied the police and the military with U.S. grade weapons, military weapons, in the under the guise of finding drug dealers and things of that nature. But that's not necessarily the case.
Mhm.
Is actually to start a new war with Colombia,
Right.
and to hide the hand. Throw the rock, hide the hand. Same old trick that's been happening, where they cause a uprising in other countries that are neighboring Venezuela. Remember, too, this isn't the first time the U.S. attempted to attack Venezuela, but this time it'll be full-fledged because the U.S. is grasping to hold on to its economic supremacy, and they need oil. That's number one. Certain contracts are about to expire, and they need a new contract, new oil. What better way to get it other than to just take it? Whether that be at the cost of lives, innocent lives, in neighboring countries just like Trinidad,
Ooh,
So yeah, it's full-fledged. To
Okay.
answer your question, short and simple, yeah, it's active.
thank you for that. Now, there are two things, and I'm going to pare down on the reference to Trinidad in a second. What would be the reason in, causing some sort of trouble on the Ecuador-Colombia side? What would be the strategic advantage in that? Because, I mean, the U.S. is already building itself up in the Caribbean Sea, and Trump has already publicly called the Colombian president a narco-terrorist or whatever.
Correct. Well, Ecuador is 100% controlled by the U.S. It might as well be a state. Use U.S. dollars. Everything is valued in U.S. dollars. Everything is just U.S.
Mhm.
In exchange for military bases, etc. They utilize the land here. What would be the reason? The strategic reason would be this: they know that China and Russia have a vested interest in Venezuela for the same reasons the U.S. would have a vested interest. It's just that China and Russia would do business with Venezuela, and the U.S. wouldn't like that. So what they would do, they know that Colombia would back Venezuela 100%. I don't know if you've seen the interview with the president of Cuba.
No.
Where the interviewer asked Cuba would they back Venezuela. Cuba, they're smart enough not to say that they would. Militarily, they said they would do it, through their media, so to say. But yeah, to answer your question, the strategic move would be to get Ecuador to fight against Venezuela. It's a bunch of Venezuelans. The entire Ecuador, the country of Ecuador, it's a bunch of Venezuelans in Colombia as well. A lot of those people are ex-military as well. They're looking for certain people under the guise of let's find drug dealers.
Right. So it's essentially a way to distract the Colombians with another war front. So while they potentially go and defend themselves against either militia or actual Ecuadorian forces, maybe they're attacked from somewhere else because they have some other elements going on there. Maybe they are what you call mercenaries that are put into position to also attack Colombia on multiple fronts. We've seen that in geopolitical spaces, haven't we?
South America fights all of the countries in South America fight guerrilla warfare, which America isn't specialized in, so they'll rather use someone from the region to do so.
Right. And that ties me down into another question, which I'll ask later about, U.S. and guerrilla warfare and whether this is another Vietnam. But before I get to that, in the deployment of now the USS Gerald R. Ford, which is the U.S.'s most advanced amphibious vehicle, which is an aircraft carrier, right?
Right.
And its movement in regional waters. How close are we, do you think, to direct U.S.-Venezuela confrontation?
I would give it before the end of this year. If no one intervenes, such as like Russia and China, if no one else intervenes, then yeah, it would be head on.
So before the close of this year, you anticipate some action?
100%.
Okay, and do you think are there forward bases or staging points within Caribbean territories, that has been mapped out, especially Trinidad and Tobago, that could be drawn into like a military theater if the conflict escalates?
The Port of Spain, 100%.
Could you elaborate on that? Why Port of Spain versus anywhere else? So like Cedrus, for example?
I don't think so. If I were involved, it would definitely be the Port of Spain. That's something I would take over. What I would do, I'll tell you the plan. And you will see this in all U.S. actions when they intervene into different countries. But what happens is that they tend to control the ports. One way they would do that is have a quote-unquote Venezuelan go and bomb the port. And we know it's not a Venezuelan. It's probably someone from the CIA or some type of agency. Go in, bomb a port, sneak in, sneak out, hide a body there, or whatever the case may be, however it would go. But the point and the principle is, to cause some type of distraction and blame it on the Venezuelans. And then the U.S. comes in and says, hey, we're here to protect you guys. We base up there, and control the port, and they will not leave. The U.S. doesn't leave where they enter. Look at Afghanistan and the Middle East. They'll say, oh, we're getting ready to bring the troops home. That's not true. They're there to stay.
What would be the benefit in the blowing up of the port? Like, how would the U.S., even get the people on their side to support them helping with what?
You create a boogeyman. Mm-hmm. You create a boogeyman, so to say, in layman's terms. You create the bad guy. It's like the Hegelian dialect. You create the bad guy, and you come in as the good guy. And that gives you control. You don't have to convince people if people are in a state of panic. You come in with the remedy, the solution, and their solution is protection. We need to protect the Middle East. Okay, now we need to protect the Caribbean. Let's Trinidad on the side. It'll be the entire Caribbean.
Right. So
because the bad Venezuelans are attacking the Caribbean because we're messing up their drug trade. That's not true.
So what are you seeing in your footage and field reports that the public might not yet understand about the scale and coordination of these preparations?
That the U.S. is already inside most Caribbean countries. U.S. agents are already there to create exactly what I'm telling you. That's how it always goes. Governments are usually paid off. Government actors are usually paid off prior to something like this happening.
Right.
In order to, sometimes they're paid to lie to the people. I'm not sure what the political leaders are saying to the people in Trinidad, but I'm 100% sure that U.S. intelligence are there and coaching them on what to say to the people, and it's usually lies.
From a military and intelligence standpoint, and of course that is your sort of forte, how vulnerable is Trinidad and Tobago to spillover effects, whether it's the airspace incursions or proxy operations or even refugee surges if fighting breaks out?
Well, Trinidad is 100% open. There's no protection. If I was a citizen in Trinidad, I'll be 100% worried. Because things will, if a war happens full-fledged and no one intervenes, no other countries intervenes or say anything to the matter, Trinidad would be definitely affected by it, in the sense of loss of life. I mean, that's one of the main aspects of war, casualty.
So do you think our energy and shipping infrastructure could become targets or collateral assets in this regional war scenario?
100%. Number one, the U.S. will come in and try to upgrade it. But with them doing that, they're going to control it.
Right. So what you're saying is, with reference to the port and some of these other assets, if indeed they're targeted, the U.S. might then come and offer like a rebuilding condition where they actually control, the assets going forward.
Russia was the bad guy to the Ukraine, the U.S. backed the Ukraine, rebuilt everything, offer to rebuild everything. But that gives the U.S. control forever in the region.
Well, I do know that in some of those deals, BlackRock is specifically, in influential in basically owning a lot of the deals that have been negotiated. Isn't that?
That's a public front company for the U.S. The U.S. has a lot of NGOs. It's not official. But that's obviously, a front company for the U.S.
Right. So what would you say then are the short-term risks, say, for example, over the next 6 months and the long-term consequence for our sovereignty and security if this escalation continues unchecked?
Short-term would be a lot of casualties. One, and then two, a political instability, because I'm pretty sure you guys have, political leaders that are lying. And once the people find out the truth, and, the people are going to fight back, there's going to be casualties. Because once the people fight back, the U.S. comes in to try to be the peacemaker in the deal, and you don't want their military on the street, It's the same play over and over again. That's the short term. The long term is that all of your industries and things will be taken over after the destruction, kind of like an innocent bystander, just standing still without making any moves. Bullets pass by, but some of them hit you. They come in and just try to rebuild everything long term, and they control your port.
Mm-hmm. So, based on your intelligence experience, the U.S., or should I say, are the U.S. and or any of its partners, like NATO partners, for example, likely to pressure some of our Caribbean states to host logistic and surveillance operations? I mean, that's already taking place with the U.S. in Trinidad and Tobago.
Right.
Actually, maybe I'll rephrase that. Unless you've had an answer for it.
Well, yeah, now it'll be open where it was closed or private. Now it'll be out in the open, can openly say, okay, the U.S. is now partnering with us on this and that, and that's to protect us from the bad guys.
Right.
And they just take over your industry. It'll turn into like a Puerto Rico, but unofficial.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? If the war would be over the oil, the U.S. would control the ports.
Right. So
they would control the waters, admiralty law.
So one of the things that Trinidad and Tobago has been the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago have been struggling with is what we call the status of the forces agreement. Now, I'm sure you're aware of this, but under the former Prime Minister, Dr. Keith Rowley, he would have signed a new version of the status of the forces agreement, as well as some security pacts, right? But unlike normally in previous years, they would publicly publish the SOFA agreement. This one was kept concealed, right? So the public is none the wiser as to what is contained in the SOFA agreement and the security pact signed with the United States under the previous administration. Of course, everybody blames currently Mrs. Prasad-Bissessar for sort of acting out the certain arrangements that are contained in the SOFA agreement, and her utterances, of course, which have been incendiary. But what do you understand is in that status of the forces agreement, and why was it so secretive? What was the nature of even the then Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago signing that? Like, what was the circumstances that might have made him do that, given that he was someone who proposed a zone of peace and the Montevideo mechanism, which in Trump's first term kind of prevented Trump from doing what he's doing today. So what do you understand is in that status of the forces agreement with the United States?
I wouldn't be able to speak on it, but I can say this. Anytime a government hides something from the public, it's because it's something against the public. It's not for the public. It'll be against the public. In my opinion, in my experience, from what I've seen, that happens every time. Once it's exposed,
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Why can't you speak on that?
Well, certain clearances.
Okay.
That would expose me and who I am.
Okay, fair enough. I respect that. I only have a few more questions and then we can wrap things up. But how do you interpret Prime Minister Kamla Prasad-Bissessar's recent statements supporting U.S. operations in the region, encouraging them to blow people out of the water, etc.? Well, how do you interpret that?
It's tyrannical, to say the least. That's tyranny, that's pure tyranny. One, if I were her, I wouldn't even get involved into U.S. matters, and I wouldn't drag my people into U.S. matters unless I'm trying to protect my people versus engage my people in the things that have nothing to do or will offer any benefit to my people. I mean, that's common sense, and I'm pretty sure the people of Trinidad, I've been to Trinidad before, and the people of Trinidad are very politically inclined. So for her to try to pull the wool over the eyes of the people is quite asinine and, to say the least, quite stupid. You're going to have people rioting in the streets, against everything she's doing.
So, in your professional opinion, Is his stance strengthening or compromising Trinidad and Tobago's neutrality and national security?
It is dissolving by the second the neutrality of Trinidad and Tobago. I'll tell you this, once you're aligned with certain powers, not the supreme powers, but just certain powers, you can never unalign yourself with it.
Right.
Because the blood will be on your hands as well.
Right. And does it appear that Trinidad is being used as a proxy or pawn in a larger sort of geopolitical chess game between Washington and Caracas?
100%.
Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, that's pretty obvious, isn't it?
It's obvious, yeah. If a power uses lies in order to engage the world into its wars, then the only other option is to tell the truth.
Right.
You need people to tell the truth, and people not to be afraid of telling the truth. Narcissism is a characteristic, right? And that can be applied to anything, even the organization also appear to be narcissistic. A narcissist would not want to be exposed as a liar in the public's eyes, or someone that causes harm in the public eyes. It always has to appear to be the hero. You disarm its only power by stating something as mundane as that. Hey, if you want oil, just ask.
Mm-hmm.
If you need food, just ask. If you need our help with something, just ask publicly. Just like that.
Are you seeing any classified level indicators or chatter that might suggest a timeline or trigger event that could move this from tension to open conflict?
Gotta be careful how I answer that one. Classified, I wouldn't be able to speak on. I can say this. Timelines for, let's say, an attack, is never actually an actual timeline. It's always based off of an event. Mm-hmm. And it's an event that justifies the attack, right, not necessarily the time. So that event would be, I'll tell you this, the event would be Russia or China making a public statement on defending Venezuela.
Okay, and you think that could be a trigger event?
Correct.
Okay. And from your own sources, is Venezuela's Northern Command truly on a war footing, or is this more about signaling strength? Because, of course, you would have seen the video I put up, right? Is that more of a signal of strength, or are they truly on a war footing?
Venezuela isn't an adept to war at all, on this, in the sense of fighting, a U.S. military. What would happen would be a Russia or a China would back them. Just how the U.S., I gave you the story about the U.S. backing just recently, within the last, week, backing Ecuador and their police and military. Same thing would happen with Venezuela, where Russia and China would back them.
No, Venezuela has, had missiles and stuff in the past, right? But we know about the 5,000 Eagle-S newer version, shoulder-held, I can't remember what they're called, the shoulder-held Eagle-S weapons that were landed in Venezuela to contribute to this. Based on your knowledge of U.S. weapons, can those really do much damage?
Against the U.S.?
Yeah, or against drones and stuff like that.
The drones that are out now, the brand new technology, I can say this, they have their own electromagnetic field, put it like that, where any type of laser could be deflected, even though it's light. It can be deflected. Certain things can be deflected. That's what I can say on that. So it wouldn't be if their military hasn't upgraded their weaponry. They wouldn't be able to defeat any type of drones. But China and Russia can.
Well, they're Russian-made weapons, right? The Eagle S are Russian-made.
Right, but certain things have to be upgraded. You have a company in California right now that actually is and has mass-produced 2025 weapons.
Right.
Where 2024 weapons would not be of any effect to the 2025 weapons.
So it's the long and short of it is, what you're saying is that it really is no match with what's out there that the United States has and its arsenal, right? It's more of a signal of strength, in lieu of the fact that they don't really have any means really to defend themselves against the onslaught of, U.S. military power.
Correct.
And finally, based on your decades of experience, what would you want the ordinary citizens of Trinidad to be able to understand about what's happening right now?
Oh, man. It's all economic. Watch your banks. A lot of it is a distraction. What's going to happen what will happen is going to happen. Your politicians are lying to you. Oh man, it's a lot, but I don't want to incite anything either,
Yeah, I understand. I appreciate that. What do you think our government should be doing immediately to safeguard national security and prevent, our citizens coming in harm's way? Or is there nothing they can do?
Well, yeah, there is. They should be unifying the country. They should be sitting down they should be displaying how dire this is and the importance of the country coming together to decide on what to do. There should be some type of legislation passed on you guys' borders and the ports and things of that nature to protect it. Honestly, really, there is nothing you can do, to be honest, because it seems as though that, the current political parties, have probably sold out the country already.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. That was a very interesting conversation. I do know that, it will be very helpful to the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago in terms of understanding the story behind the story.